Hey, welcome to Ask a Gender Therapist. This is a video series in which I answer your transgender questions from the point of view of a gender therapist. My name is Dara Hoffman-Fox. I'm your host, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Colorado. Well, this week's question comes from Alex. Alex says, do you have to go to a gender therapist in order to transition? Because therapy is normally expensive. So definitely have gotten this question before. The short answer is that currently here in 2014, it definitely depends. So let's break it down. What does it depend on? The first thing it depends on is where you live. And the second thing it depends on is what physician you'll be using and what surgeon you would be using. So I did go ahead and jump to the assumption that Alex was referring to medically transitioning. But we'll also touch upon socially transitioning as well. So let's start off, as always, with the WPATH Standards of Care, which I will put a link for in the video. So the most recent version, version 7 of the Standards of Care, says that it is strongly suggested that somebody does see a qualified mental health professional if they are going to be starting a medical transition. But it does say it is also okay if the medical professional that you are going to has, if they are trained in behavioral health and or if they work part of a multidisciplinary team, meaning there probably would be somebody there who would then do an evaluation with you. The reason that I say it depends on where you live is because you might live in an area in which the number of physicians that you would be choosing from are plentiful, or you might live in an area where there might be just one physician that you have to choose from. So what you have to find out, first of all, is if the physician that you want to go see for hormone replacement therapy requires that you visit a gender therapist to get a letter of support from that therapist. So the first thing you'll need to do is when you research and try to find a physician in your area who will provide you with HRT, you need to call their office and just go ahead and ask them, does the physician require an HRT letter? And if they say yes, that means you then have to go through the process of finding a gender therapist, which you can watch a video that I made previously about this subject called How Do I Find a Gender Therapist? And then if it turns out you don't need a gender therapist, then you can go ahead and make your appointment with that physician. Now, more than likely that physician will be asking you questions about your mental health, or they'll maybe have a nurse practitioner do that. The other thing that that physician might do is have you fill out and sign something called informed consent. And so this is a topic that I think I will actually cover in the next Ask a Gender Therapist video, because this is also a way for physicians to make sure you are informed and you know what you're getting into, and that because you sign this paper, they keep it on file. So that way, more than likely, they are legally protected. So, but like I said, that's a conversation for another video. But anyway, so what's going to happen, like I said, is that if you find a physician who does require an HRT letter, there's still a few things you can keep in mind so that maybe it'll be less of an expense to you when you go see that gender therapist. So the first thing I would recommend is make sure when you find a therapist that they know that there is in existence the WPATH Standards of Care. You know, you can even get a copy of it off of the internet as a PDF and print it out or email it to them so that they know that there are specific changes that have been made to those standards of care. Because, for instance, make sure that therapist knows that there is a difference between you going in to get psychotherapy and for you to just go in and get an assessment for gender dysphoria. You know, if you go in and you're saying, I need an assessment for gender dysphoria, more than likely that therapist will see you for a fairly short number of sessions because they are basically assessing whether or not you have gender dysphoria. Then they need to write your letter and then that process is finished. That is different than going in for counseling or going in for psychotherapy. And you can do that if you want. You know, like I said, the WPATH says it's strongly suggested to get psychotherapy or counseling, but if you really are just there for the assessment, you shouldn't have to go for too many sessions at that point. And also in the standards of care, make sure that that therapist knows that there's no recommended minimum number of sessions that you have to go in for. It's at what point does the therapist feel like they have the information they need and have talked to you about the standards of care so that they can put all the information in that HRT letter that's needed. The other thing you can do is ask the therapist if they have an intern who could see you, meaning that that intern could see you at a lower cost. The therapist would be supervising the intern, so you would still be able to get the HRT letter. More than likely, the therapist themselves would end up writing that letter and signing it, but perhaps being able to see the intern at a lower cost could be of help. And the last suggestion I have is that see if you have a local gender identity center or a local pride center, which you can ask them if they provide low-cost counseling to help you out with your HRT letter. And so that is the summary of what you can do if it turns out you are going to be visiting a physician who does require a letter, but maybe a way to still make it as affordable as possible for yourself. Let me touch real quick on surgeons. At this point, standards of care say pretty much the same thing, where it's strongly suggested that you go to a mental health professional to get the assessment and have that letter and bring it to the surgeon. And in fact, for a top surgery, it's one letter, and for genital surgery, it's 2 letters. But it does say as well, just like for HRT, that if the surgeon is trained in behavioral health and or has a team of people who can make that assessment, that you don't necessarily have to have that letter. From my experience, I've noticed that for top surgery, some surgeons do require the letter and some don't. So far as I have seen for genital surgery, I've only seen that surgeons are definitely requiring both letters. That may change in the future, but for now, definitely be prepared that you're more than likely going to go need to visit therapists to be able to have that done. So that covers that. Like I said, I wanted to touch on the social transition aspect as well. And here's the thing. There are federal laws, there are state laws, there's county laws, there's city laws, and it's all different. And I'm, of course, right now speaking of the United States. You know, globally, then there's different laws in all the different countries. So you have to find out what's going on in the state and even the city in which you live. So unfortunately, it can be a little bit of a mess currently, and at some point, hopefully, everything will be streamlined. But in the meantime, what I suggest that you'll do is go to the Lambda Legal website. I'm going to put a URL here for you to look at, but it's lambdalegal.org/know your rights, and it's know-your-rights /transgender. That is where you can find information specifically about your particular state. And then there's also at lambdalegal.org, go to /publications/trans-toolkit. And then you can find a toolkit there that will also help you with what your legal rights are in the particular part of the country that you live. So the reason that socially that there's so many different ways that this is going is because everybody is able to make their own laws. And so, like I said, you might have to take some time to sift through all of that. But hopefully those links can give you a head start. So Alex, I appreciate your question, and I bet a lot of other people appreciate it as well. Just wanted to let everybody know that my new website is finally up. So what that means is that my blog Conversations with a Gender Therapist is now a part of this website. What you would do is go to darahoffmanfox.com, and what I would highly suggest you do is on the top right-hand corner of the page, go to where it says put your email address here, and if you give me your email address, I will make sure I let you know when I put up new posts, and I'll send you a newsletter with different things that maybe don't appear on the website or on the blog. I'd love to have you as part of my tribe, and so we can continue to learn and grow together. And lastly, if you have a question for the Ask a Gender Therapist series, be sure to email that to darahoffmanfox@gmail.com. Take care.